Hello guys, and welcome back, or welcome here if you are new. My name is Amy. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a Christian booktuber Q&A. Honestly, I am really excited about this video. When I invest my time in anything, and just to use an example, watching booktube and watching, people quite regularly, you start to feel like you know them and you want to know more about them. And so I just thought it was really nice when somebody recently commented on a video saying that they liked hearing a certain story that I had shared, and they thought I should do a Q&A about my life. And so that really meant a lot to me to know that they cared to know. So what I did was I put up a question box on Instagram and not thinking, not knowing what to expect, and you guys showed up. Mostly from Instagram. I did a YouTube short because that was like the quickest way I could think to put it out there. And someone commented and asked a few questions. And so, yeah, I got about 20 questions in total. So I think what I'm going to do is just do a part 1 and part 2, only because say I spent 1 to 2 minutes on each question, some maybe even more, I don't know, then that video is already getting up there and I don't want to bore you guys, okay? So I think it's just easier if I do it in 2 parts. And I honestly want to answer everybody's question. You guys took the time to put the question out there, and so I owe it to you to answer it. All right, so I have screenshotted all the questions and I have them here on my phone. So I'm going to be looking at the first 10 questions, and yeah, so let's just go ahead and get started. All right, so here we go. Question number 1. How did you and your husband meet? So I had a feeling that this question would come up, and it was the very first question, and I think that's just a very common thing that people want to know. My husband and I met at work. He was a supervisor over a couple departments, and one of those was mine. And so yeah, that is how we met, at work. Now, I had known about him at work for a long time. People knew that he was a Christian. They knew that I was a Christian, but I did not see him as anything other than just someone who worked there. He was not on my radar for anything like romantically. My husband, I don't know if I've ever told you guys like the age gap between us. I might have mentioned it, I can't remember, but there is 15 years in between us. 15. And so back then, because this is back in 2005, I was in my early 20s and he was like in his upper 30s. And so he was just not on my radar. But people would often kind of like tease me and say, oh, I think you guys are going to end up together. And I was like, no, not going to happen. So I guess over time, though, the Holy Spirit was like, nope, we've got other plans for you, girl. And so my heart started changing. And then I'll never forget one time I heard like a group of women walk by, and they were saying, whoever Joe ends up with is going to be such a lucky girl. And I don't know, when they said that, like something like switched in my head, and I just thought about it, and I was like, So I just started thinking about him a little differently. He was always positive. He was always in a good mood, just very friendly. He just had, his overall like personality and his character just really spoke volumes. And then once I got to know him, I found out he was a godly man, and he was, he has a lot of wisdom. And I knew that I could learn from him and that we could grow. And I don't know, just all these things started to be revealed. Well, this is funny to you guys, because I'm actually the one who kind of got the relationship rolling, because, and I can't believe I even did this, I asked him if he was seeing anyone. I can't believe I did that. I was so forward. And he wasn't really into this conversation. And then I said, I can't believe I said this, you guys. I said, well, I would date you. It's like so embarrassing, like, to think about that. But, and he didn't say anything, you guys, nothing. And so later on, like, after we'd been together for a while, I'm like, babe, why didn't you answer me? I felt so dumb. And he's like, because, babe, I was your supervisor, and he did not feel, that was right. And so, again, just part of his character, but eventually they kind of did like some shift at work, and then he wasn't directly over me, and so then we started talking. Our first date was actually to a Bible study, and then we walked around Lake Eola, which is a big lake in downtown Orlando, and we had an ice cream afterwards. And so that was like our first date, and yeah, and then our relationship started to build. So we've known each other for about 17 years, and we've been married this year 16 years. So yeah, that's our story. Question number 2, do you have any pets? We have one cat. Her name is Aspen. We got her back in 2009, and so she is going to be 13. She's going to be 13 this year. So yes, she is a big, white, fluffy, furry cat with blue eyes. All right, question number 3. Do you have any siblings, and where do you fall in the birth order? Yes, I have 2 siblings. I have one sister and one brother. So I'm the oldest. I was born in 1981, and then my sister, she was born in 1984, and my brother was born in 1987. So it's like 3 years spread out between us, but obviously between me and my brother, it's 6. So yes, me being the oldest. Number 4, what is one way your personality has changed from when you were younger? Well, I think when I was younger, I was a little bit more like, I don't know if you would say shy. I don't know, maybe you would, or sometimes I wouldn't speak up, okay? Over the last several years, many years, you know, that has definitely changed. Now, if something comes up and I feel like I need to say something, just like I did with my husband, it's a lot easier for me now to just say what I need to say. I don't know exactly what personality trait that would actually fall under, but there you go. All right, another question, number 5. What personality trait has stayed strong since you were little? So that one is pretty easy, and that is honesty. I can be honest, like, to a fault. People do know if they come to me with a question, I'm going to give them an honest answer. I don't do a lot of sugarcoating because it does no good. People come to me for a reason, and I'll just share, and what they take from it is up to them. Now, when you're younger, sometimes that can come across, well, in a different way because you're not mature and you just throw things out there and you could hurt people's feelings. Now that I'm obviously more mature, I know there are ways to deliver an honest answer, but in a way that is tactful. Number 6, have you traveled outside of the US? If so, where? I have never traveled outside of the US, but I will say this, I have seen Canada from like across the way. And let me explain. So I mentioned this before, but my husband is from New England. He's lived in several New England states, but primarily he's from Vermont. That's where he was born, like northern Vermont. So at the very top, his mother, my mother-in-law, actually worked for the border. She worked at the border, like the US-Canadian border. I can't remember. I think that's where she retired from. But either way, they were really close, like to the Canadian border. And we have had plans over the years on one of our trips to Vermont to kind of fly out into Canada from there. So, but I have seen it, like we have been somewhere, and you know, my husband says, oh, see that mountain range over there? That's in Canada. So I've seen parts of Canada, but I've never walked on like Canadian soil or any other country soil outside of the US. All right, question number 7. What is or are your spiritual gifts? I thought this question was really cool. And yeah, I'm happy to share. And so I can tell you that I have verified all these with my husband, and you know, he's pretty much the person on this earth who knows me the best. So I conferred with him and he's like, yes. Now I'm not going to go into detail what all these mean. I think a lot of us know, or if you don't know, look them up because, you know, it tells a lot. It can really tell a lot about a person. So number 1 is spirit of discernment. I definitely have that. I also have the spirit of encouragement. You know, I'm that person who will be in your corner, cheering you on and just giving you encouragement. I also have a gifting in giving. I love to give of my talents. I love to give of my time. I love hosting and just giving back to people in general. So there's a lot of ways to give, and we also do, you know, I also do give monetarily, but there's so many ways to give, and I'm definitely a giver. Also, I have the gift of teaching. I just love to teach. I love to learn, but at the same time, I love to teach and I love to help people understand. And then lastly, my gift number 5 is helping. I love to help people, to kind of like do my part, to help in our church, to help in our community, just to help any way I can. You know, I think a lot of us actually fit in more of these than we actually think, but those are like, I think, my top 5s. All right, question number 8. When did you get saved? Okay, I can remember going to like, children's church or Sunday school, that sort of thing. Kids camp, we always did kids camp. And I remember that our children's pastor, he would say, if you want to get saved, raise your hand. And I was like that kid who would like raise my hand like every Sunday. I just thought it was fun. I wanted to be up there, and I do remember saying like the sinner's prayer and all of that as a child. But to say when I would think I was really understood what that meant, like what a relationship meant, what it truly meant to be saved, probably not until I was older. I'm gonna say somewhere around like middle school, 7th or 8th grade, and just certain conversations that I had around that time, which would lead me to believe that's when I really had an understanding of what it truly meant to be saved. So even though, yes, I do remember saying the sinner's prayer when I was younger, around 5 or 6, knowing it and being able to interpret it and know what it truly means, probably not until I was about somewhere around 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that age gap. All right, question number 9. What is one deal breaker element when reading? The whole book could be a 5-star except for this. So for me, a deal breaker is when I am going into a book thinking that it's a Christian fiction book. Okay, it's labeled as Christian fiction. The author is known for Christian fiction. But as I'm reading the book, and even though I'm enjoying it, I'm not picking up any kind of really major faith moments or anything that would lead me to believe this is like a Christian fiction book. So one example is, this is a popular book, and it's actually a Christmas book called A Cross Country Christmas. And this story, you guys, was a really fun story to read. It's a really good book. A lot of people loved it. Courtney Walsh is a Christian fiction writer. She has written many Christian fiction books, and this book was marketed in Christian fiction. But in my opinion, I was just missing a lot of the faith aspects. And so for that reason, I could never give that book a 5-star rating. All right, and question number 10 is, what book or books got you into reading? And so number 1, that's a really good question. And number 2, I'd love to share this. And so book number 1 is Sophie's Heart. Now this book was published originally back in 1995, so it is an older manuscript, okay? But my aunt, one of my aunts, I have several aunts, and one of them, Aunt Brenda, she loves to read. She has been reading for many, many years, and she kind of sparked that interest in me. She let me borrow that book, and I read it, and I loved it. It was such a touching, moving story. Now, granted, being from 1995, it was a different day and age, and so some things may be a little off, but it was such a good book overall. There is actually a special edition, I'm going to put it up here, that I want to get. I just think this edition is just, it's like a princess type edition. And so I would love to have a copy of that book. A second book is actually a series, and it is by Terry Blackstock, and it's called The Suncoast Chronicles. And so basically, I think it was like 3 or 4 stories in like one giant book is what she had, and she let me borrow it. Let me verify that. Suncoast Chronicles, Terry Blackstock. Okay, so it was 4. They do have these separated in a regular paperback. That's what it looks like. So there is Presumption of Guilt, Ulterior Motives, Evidence of Mercy, and Justifiable Means. And so these look like just a regular paperback books, but she had like a really thick copy. And I think now that's why those types of books are my favorite, because that's pretty much where it all started for me. All right, so there is part 1 of my Q&A, question 1 through 10. So I hope that you guys are enjoying this so far and learning some things about me. So, yep, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I hope everyone is doing well, and I will see you back here real soon for part 2. Bye!